You ever notice how easy it is to complete tasks that you're not really passionate about? Every day we're faced with countless tasks that we couldn't care less about. We make our stupid beds, brush our stupid teeth, stand in the middle of the stupid street for a sick YouTube shot. Okay, actually I kinda like that part. We gotta brush the snow off our stupid cars and drive to our stupid jobs. We get all of these things done without any issue, but then when it comes to the projects that we're really passionate about and we really care about, those seem to always be the ones that are the hardest to get done. Turns out we can blame it all on an old British naval historian named Cyril Northcote Parkinson. Or I think it's Cyril, maybe Cyril. Obviously he's not really to blame, but he did coin what's now known as Parkinson's Law, which states that work expands to fill the time allotted to it. This is definitely a familiar concept to all of us. Like, I'm sure you've had a project in school or at work where you're given a due date and you have more than enough time to actually finish the project, but it always seems to be that you're working up until the very last minute to finish that project. And I'd say that chances are pretty good that the bulk of the work happened in those final moments. Like, maybe you started with some casual brainstorming and some light research, but once the deadline approaches, that's when you really start ramping up the amount of work you do. So what happens if you don't set a deadline for yourself? This is where I get into trouble all of the time because I'm a perfectionist and the work increases in complexity over time. So the more time you have to work on this project, you'll just keep wanting to improve on it. You want it to be perfect, and eventually you get stuck.
Dang.
Turns out Mr. Parkinson accounted for that in his law as well, because he stated that as the work expands, it also increases in complexity.
I got a small shovel I can help you out with.
That's usually the point where I'm the most discouraged, because the project hasn't become exactly what I originally envisioned it to be, or I just become bored with the concept and want to move on to something new. You have to recognize that a project can become infinitely complex and that it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be exactly what you envisioned it to be. At a certain point, you just have to have a deadline and get it done. I'm pretty sure Parkinson originally wrote this in regards to the Navy and big businesses, so I want to add my own caveat for creative work. Not all of the work that you do during the creative process is completely productive or homogeneous. Productivity is not linear. So with creative work in particular, I've noticed a massive part of the process is forcing yourself to take breaks to do the things that recharge you and inspire you. There have been way too many times where I found myself staring at a blank page, trying to force myself to be creative, when really what my brain needed was just for my body to move around a little bit.
Oh, I forgot what I was doing.
Man, that place is special. That's just a park here in Denver where they blow snow for a couple months of the year, bring in some rails, and you can just ski and snowboard in Denver, which is crazy because Denver doesn't even get that much snow, but to be able to hit that in the city and not have to go up to the mountains, it's pretty special. What were we talking about? Oh, deadlines. So let's say you've set your deadline, you've got to work on your project, and somehow when the deadline approaches, you're still not done. Why does that seem to happen so often when the deadline is self-imposed? If we think back to all of those mundane tasks that we were talking about earlier, not only do they all have inherent deadlines, but there's a second crucial element in that they all have a consequence if they're not finished. If you don't finish your school project, you get a bad grade. If you're late to work, you might get fired. If you don't brush your teeth, you won't have many friends. But when it comes to our own creative work and passion projects, it can feel like there's no consequence. We can tell ourselves that we'll just get to it another time. But I think it's easy to forget the cost of our inaction. While you're busy tinkering and endlessly trying to make a project perfect, you're missing out on the opportunity to learn and evolve. the actual consequence for missing your own deadline comes in the form of missed opportunities and growth in the future. So the final note that I want to leave you on with all of this is that this should not be a stressful or intimidating idea. It's kind of the same old thought that constraints are really what you need to let your creativity flourish. So meeting deadlines for yourself is ultimately a really freeing reality, because rather than having to always make the perfect thing, you just gotta get it done.
I say if you don't like this music, you don't be listening to it, you know I'm just a dude that you know, or something similar. If you don't keep it real, then you go somewhere but here, cause you know we're only losing control just for a minute. Oh,